Hey guys, it's Laura Richards. I'm here with
Monaca Vanderpool. Hey guys, it's Monaca Vanderpool. I'm here with.
you know what? We're doing an episode together. We're going to talk about our books. So, Monica, give us a little intro who you are.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for having me.
Of
And
course.
thank you for being on my podcast.
Yeah.
My name is Monaca Vanderpool, and I was in a 13-year toxic relationship, and now I'm talking about it.
In
Pretty
lots
much.
of ways.
Yeah, in lots of ways. I back the end of last year, end of 2023, I started a podcast. It's called Glitch Mob.
Yeah.
And then it started from journaling. I started writing stuff down. I actually had somebody tell me to write my ex-husband a letter.
Oh,
Won't send him the letter, but start writing the letter. And when I started writing that letter, I was like, here,
this could be a book.
it's a
and it
book.
be, and it became a book.
And it
Okay.
became a book. So that's
It's
what
so
I did.
crazy. Oh my gosh, we have such similarities, that's for sure. So,
Yes, we do.
okay, so for me, I'm the host of the That's Where I'm At podcast, and that's how Monica and I met, in the podcast world and also
Mhm.
in the narcissist world. And I did the same thing. I took my journals and decided to form them into a book so people can see what happens when narcissists try to get you, how they keep you, how they fool the rest of the world. And then we're telling all their secrets so that you can stay safe. So, yay for us.
Yeah, exactly. And then also telling stuff to how to help people cope with it.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing. I don't know about you, but that was the hardest thing. But when I had words to my pain, like when I found out he had somebody else and things like that, when I knew that that's what narcissists do, it became that it wasn't that I'm trash, is that's how they treat people. And so
Mhm.
that doesn't mean that I'm trash and that he just threw away our 33 years. That's what he needed. So it was really good to put words to my pain, and that's what I did in my book, to really give people like a voice that
Yeah.
way and give a name to their pain. It doesn't hurt any less, but it really helps you think about like it wasn't about me, it's about them and the way they do garbage because they're garbage people. So
Yeah, and that all right, so when I came out of my relationship, there were a lot of times where I was like, what did I do wrong?
yes.
Why couldn't I make this work?
Yeah,
I did not understand any of it.
right.
Um, so when I got out of it and when I got into really the podcast world and talking about narcissism and connecting with other women, mostly women, there's some men,
Yes.
it's
Yes.
mostly women.
Yeah.
Um, and understanding the traits and actually putting words to, okay, what he did here is this. This is
Right.
gaslighting. This is love
Yes.
bombing. This is, this is a Hoover maneuver. So understanding it like that, I feel like all of the pieces of the puzzle just started
I
coming
know.
together.
Isn't that amazing? Because that's what it was to me is as I got into the world, like you said, as I started talking to my or talking on social media, I was being petty, but then people started coming out of the woodwork going, "Oh, you should listen to this person or you should meet this person or that happened to my friend." And then I didn't feel alone, and then I was able to find this community and where I met you, where we were able to put, like you said, the pieces of the puzzle together, and you go, "Oh, because this is so not about us. We work on ourselves to heal and move forward and so that it doesn't happen again
Mhm.
to us, but it's not about us. We weren't terrible people and that's how we got sucked into this. It's because actually they are attracted to really fabulous people and they
Right.
need that supply to like build their facade.
Yeah.
I was a giver, he started to become a giver, things like that. I served in the community, he started to serve in the community, like I was teaching him what to do.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
And I actually talk about that in my book, how, it's beautiful to have a strong, independent woman
Yeah.
who is, a voice and powerful, but unfortunately that makes us targets.
Yes.
So if we're not aware of these traits, we
Right.
can get sucked in. And don't
Right.
you find that like once, because you've been out of your relationship, how many years?
Almost 2 years.
Okay. Didn't you notice that when you start talking to other women who went through this, you can automatically relate to them.
Yeah.
And when you start the conversation, you're like, yes, that happened to me. Yes, that
Mhm.
happened to me. And it's like that cycle is almost the same. Maybe
Yeah.
not exact the same, but that cycle is the same with all of the narcissists.
And it's why it's good that when we talk about it in our books, because we can tell you, and as I started to understand, I said to my kids, this is what's going to happen next. This is what he'll do next. This
Mhm.
is why he's doing this. Because they were like, oh, dad's doing this, or mom's saying, they were saying to each other, mom's saying that they're going to get engaged. Of course they're going to get engaged. This is why, and this is when. And when we started to understand that, it was a little easier, I guess, to understand the patterns and to
Mhm.
know that this is what they do. I was just talking to a friend who's just starting this journey, and she was telling me her story, and I'm like, oh my gosh, they're all the same.
I
They're all
know.
the same, except they do it. Maybe some of them do it like her husband did it at a higher level of, whatever terribleness. But other than that, it's all the same. This is what they do. This is what they
Right.
do. This is how they push it to the line. So
Mhm.
that makes it easier to understand that it's not about us. And then how can we help others and move forward?
Well, so I got your book, I guess it was
Okay.
about a month ago. I love the cover, by the way.
Thank you. My friend Amanda did that with AI art. She took my vision and created. She's so good at it, and she was on one of the episodes. She did one of my podcasts. She was in a cult because cults will actually grab you the same way narcissists do because it's all love bombing, future faking,
Right.
gaslighting, and so
Mhm.
she has changed her life since then, and so she understands our plight that
Right.
with this narcissism stuff. And so when I asked her to do that art, it was perfect because she saw the vision and she totally understood who they are and why they
Yeah.
need why I needed that
And
picture
it's
with a
and your
mask.
title is so true, like married to a nice guy.
Yeah,
Because people on the outside looking into your relationship, that
yeah.
he's because he shows his best self to other
To
people.
other people. Now, did you have people having a hard time believing you that he was that way behind closed doors? That he was a different way behind closed doors?
Um, Honestly, no, not at all.
Oh, okay.
I've actually since so my book's been out, what, 3 weeks now, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, I've actually had people that he grew up with reach out to me,
Wow.
and they're like, Monica, he abused us too.
Wow. Okay.
I found that very interesting.
That is interesting. Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
I would love that. I would love that those emails or whatever.
yeah.
I haven't had that there's people that was a thing secondary gaslighting
Mhm.
that I talk about often because it was the biggest surprise to me that that nice guy facade on the outside, people didn't realize what was happening behind closed doors.
Yeah,
And so they didn't know him any other way except as this nice guy. I had somebody reach out to me yesterday and give me this podcast episode and say like, "Oh, this is so interesting. He must be the ultimate narcissist and whatever." And I said, "Let me tell you all the things my ex did that this guy in the podcast did. Check, check, check."
yeah,
He, I said, "This guy isn't the ultimate narcissist. This is a typical narcissist." And it sounds so wild when people are telling the story, but it's
yeah.
typical. Like we were saying, it's always the same. It's so wild to me. So,
I had actually yesterday, now that you say that, I did have somebody, one of my family members, they said, Monica, I had no idea that you
mm,
weren't happy.
mm,
And I mean, while I was in it, and of course, social media is our highlight reel.
of
So,
course. Yeah.
we're gonna show the best parts of our life. But
Yeah.
so and to an extent, I'm a very private person when it comes to what's going on inside of my marriage with family and friends.
Yeah.
But you I never lied to my husband. He obviously lied to me,
Yeah.
but I felt like I was lying to the world.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, that was the thing when we got divorced, even with my kids. I asked them, "How is it being around your dad without me?" And they said, "It's really weird. We don't know him." And I said, "Yeah, because I curated that with him. I curated that facade with him. I
Yeah.
I kind of, he was behind my back with the smear campaign, right? He was telling
Mhm.
people what a terrible wife he had and what a horrible marriage he was in, where I was lying to the world so that they would like him.
Yeah.
Isn't that sucky? It's like that's how we're different. You know what I mean? Yes, even if we both said, "Yep, we were lying," because in a way we were curating this facade for the world, but we were in self-preservation mode.
Mhm.
That's what was happening with me. It was self-preservation. I wanted to make sure nobody found out how unhappy I was, and so I had to keep showing that. And people said, "Oh, you look like you had the perfect marriage." I said, "Well, number one, no one has a perfect marriage. Number two, that's Facebook."
Yeah.
It's like
Mhm.
that we can put anything we want on Facebook. We're not going to air our dirty laundry on Facebook. I mean, I do now, but that's
Yeah.
beside the point.
Well, so I went to the beach a couple weeks ago and I took your book and that was my beach read.
Okay, good.
Um, and reading it, I actually cried a few times because
Oh,
some of your stories I could just relate to so much.
yeah.
Like you wanted to go on trips with him,
Yeah. Yeah.
not him going on trips with his coworkers or friends, but
Right.
like it's like you yearned for this
Like a
connection.
closeness. Yeah. And instead was so confused. And I don't know if you felt that or you went through that where they confuse you so much or you get gaslit into not participating in the event. I really, when I didn't get to go on that trip that's in the book with his high school friends, I was the only wife not there. And it was all by design because the next year we were divorced and the girlfriend got to go. And
Yeah.
that was all part of the facade. They play the long game, not with us, but they play the long game, to get the new supply. It really broke my heart when I saw pictures and I said, "Oh, he really like fooled me." This is when I started waking up. That was like one of the red flags of I saw pictures on Facebook of everyone and I had all the wives texting me saying, "We miss you." And I'm like, "You miss me? Like what's going on?"
Yeah.
And that every single person was there except me, but that was by design. And that's the thing that when you're 30 years in by this point, or maybe by then it was like 28, 29,
Mhm.
you've been manipulated for so long, it's hard to go, "Oh, that's a problem. He's being really mean or whatever." But it's all part of the gaslighting. It's all part of the manipulation that you've been living with. So I
Mhm.
just thought to myself, well, that was kind of mean that I didn't get to go, but it was just an oversight. Maybe
Yeah.
he didn't mean to exclude me. I just gaslit myself. It's
Yeah.
really sad, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. And so for you, you wanted to travel and do all the things. It's heartbreaking that we were building a future,
I know.
right?
And we got when we would go on vacations with the whole family,
Yeah.
we all got to the point where we're all walking on eggshells.
Oh, okay.
So we could never have like a nice, week-long family vacation where there wasn't some type of argument, fight,
Okay.
something.
Yeah.
And towards the end, I got to the point where like I dreaded planning a family vacation.
Yeah, because you knew what
But
might happen.
yeah, but I wanted my kids to have
Yeah.
memories and us to go somewhere.
Yeah.
So it got really messy for me in the end there.
Oh, I
Now that
bet.
I'm out of it, I mean,
Yeah.
my daughter and I went to Europe, had
That's
an
so
amazing time.
yes.
I took the kids to the beach. I had an amazing time. And I've learned that I'm like, you can actually go on vacation and
And have a good time.
not fight, not argue, not walk on eggshells. You
What?
can be yourself.
Isn't that
It's
amazing?
like a
So,
whole new world to me right now.
and I don't think people realize that because when you're in it, it's something you're so comfortable with and you're
Yeah.
so used to it, even though you hate every second of it. But like I even mentioned that in my book, right? Like I knew what vacations to plan so that it would be okay. Even being at the beach, I was walking on eggshells and I hated that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
But it's amazing when you come out of it. Like you said, I went to Europe and guess what? I had a great time. Nobody made me cry or whatever, and
Yeah.
that to me was such a blessing. I even did that when I went to the beach by myself when I first got divorced. Just going to the beach
Right. And did you
and
go to Paris?
I did go to Paris. Yes.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert. Yes, I
Mhm.
did. I went to Paris because he always promised me he would take me. The
Yeah.
funny thing is right before right before I was supposed to go to Paris, he got remarried. And I said, oh my gosh, narcissists do not have an original thought in their head. If he takes that girl to Paris, I'm going to murder him.
Did
And
he?
so, no, he did not.
Okay. Mm,
But
mm,
I asked, and I never asked my kids for anything, but I asked the kids, I go, I'm really genuinely concerned that I will be in Paris and they will be there. And my kids were like, "No, mom, that's not where they're going for their honeymoon." I was like, "Thank the Lord." Because I literally it would have been an international incident. Like people would have heard
yeah,
about it, That because they don't have an original thought, and that's something that people should understand is that if I it would not have been a surprise if he would have taken her to Paris
yeah.
because I said because that's what they do. They take whatever information from society or from their previous relationship and
Mhm.
say, "Oh, she like this. This is kind of what societally people like."
Yeah.
So I know to do it with my next person because then she'll love that. It's part of their love bombing for the next person.
Right, exactly. Their next victim, pretty
Their
much.
next it's
You
so
know?
it's so it's so sad. How did you feel about your book and when you okay, did you feel vulnerable? How were you feeling when it was going to come out?
I was I was excited.
Okay,
I
great.
was excited because I know that me writing this book is going to help other people,
Yes.
and the way I like the way you have our books are similar, but they're written a little bit differently,
Uh-huh.
and we both talk about the importance of journaling,
Yeah, for sure.
which is something that I recommend to
Yeah.
everybody in the
Yes.
relationship when to journal. And I actually,
And do you have a companion journal for your book? Yes.
yes.
Okay. And I do too. So it's great. So both of us on the Big A, you can go check it out. Both our books are on there and then our
Mhm.
companion journals are on there as well
Yep.
because both of us, let me tell you, there's something about putting it down on paper with a pen
Mhm.
because there is a mind connection, like a mind body soul heart connection. It's really so good. I
And
felt like I was
you can also go back and see patterns,
yes. Yeah. And you can
and
also see how well you're doing. And
yes.
and that's why I wanted to encourage people, and I don't know if you felt this way, but that's why I put some of the journal entries I did. There were really good days, and then there was a whole day where I was just like, fuck this, fuck that. I'm
Yeah.
all done, because you do go backwards, but it's okay. It's normal. And that's why I wanted people to know that everything you're feeling is very normal. You went through a trauma. So it's
Mhm.
what you're feeling. So if you're up one day and down the next, healing is not linear. Healing is so messy.
Yeah, you're right.
So
Now,
that
so
so
I
that was exciting that you were excited to get your book out. I'm glad.
yeah, because I wanted it to help other people.
Yes, yes. Yeah.
And what I was going to say about you is that when I first met you and we
Yes.
did our first podcast,
Yeah.
you were and I'm not going to say you are this way.
Oh,
You, there's no apologies.
no.
You're going to say what you're going to say. You're
Yep.
very bold. You're not afraid you're going to hurt anybody's feelings. You're not
Yep.
walking on eggshells. That actually empowered me
Okay,
because
good.
when I first started, I was like that.
Yeah.
Because there was probably still that little trauma bond with
Of
him.
course, yeah.
And in the back of my head, when I was doing my podcast, I was like, well, make sure you don't say this because he might get mad. And
Right.
I've come a long way,
Good.
and so, but reading your book in the very beginning,
Yeah.
before I knew you, when you were doing your podcast, you were kind of like that way too.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So
I
you've
definitely was.
grown. Yeah.
I say so much more now, and the funny thing is that I just did an update episode that's coming out because it's about my 1 year anniversary right now for my podcast. So it's coming out at the end of the month, and
Mhm.
this is August. So at the end of the month, and as I was giving a little update, I kind of was answering questions people asked me, and one of them is, does your ex know? And I say, I don't know and I don't care.
Yeah.
because that's not my problem. Now, at the beginning, when I started doing it, yes, it's okay. And it's okay to be messy at the beginning. I listened to my first episode. I'm like, oh, I could have done so much better. It doesn't matter. It's messy. It's real. It's the way it is. And
Mhm.
I can tell I was still a little bit of that trauma bond because I was worried. What if he hears this? What am I? And I also had it in my mind. What if my friends or certain people in my circles hear this and say, "Oh, Laura, you shouldn't have cussed. Oh, you shouldn't have done that. You shouldn't have done this," because people did say those things to me. But that's not where I was called to. I was, and like you, when we're called to do a podcast to talk about this, we're doing it because we want to help that woman that's like us.
Right.
That's our focus. So I got over that.
Yeah.
Um,
And I think showing that we're messy and all that like we need to be that way.
Yeah, I'm attracting my people. I'm very messy right now. And what I
Mhm.
call messy, I'm just very real on social media.
Mhm.
I get so many new followers every day, and I get a ton of comments of people saying that it's resonating with them.
Yeah.
So I know because this is how I felt. I don't know how you felt. I almost felt like I needed to be somebody else until I had a really good friend say, "You need to be yourself
Mhm.
and be funny. And if you want to call people out, do that. If you want to cuss, do that. Be yourself." And when I started doing that is when I started attracting my people who want to hear what I have to say. So,
Growing that community.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because we have a person in mind that we're trying to help, right? They're usually someone like us and we want her to hear us and
Yeah.
find us so that we can help her. And so
Yeah.
that's why we have to be real. And I want to encourage everybody just to be real in whatever you do in life, be your
Well,
true
listen,
self.
congratulations, because you went bestseller.
I did. And you did too. Yay.
I haven't gotten
You
so
haven't gotten your seal yet?
they had to update my cover, so I
Your
haven't got
cover. Yeah.
my
I'm,
updated
s-
one yet. But
I'm
yeah, we
so
both
excited.
actually my journal and my book went bestseller.
Seriously, that's so
Yeah.
great. I
Yeah.
have sold some journals. I'm very excited that people are getting their hands on those. It's mostly blank, and then in the back, there's room for a shit list because you do need when you're in a trauma bond.
I actually had that mark, the shit list,
Yeah.
the chapter on the shit list.
Well, someone recommended that. I said that's a great idea. So I have it in my phone, and I don't have to look at it anymore. But you need to write down everything that they did to you, so
Mhm.
that when you are feeling that trauma bond says, "Hey, go check their social media," or "Don't you miss them?" You have to look at that list and look at that they lied, they cheated, they stole, whatever they did.
Yeah.
And it helps you remember. Be real specific. I was very specific because I'm not going to share it with anybody. So
Mhm.
in my journal, I said, I think I'm going to make a place for people to write their shit list.
List. I love that.
So that's what I did in the back of that journal. And I just think it's so funny. Um, so what kind of feedback are you getting on your book? Yes, it's bestseller. I mean, that's amazing. But what are people saying to you about it? Like,
I've had a lot of people that are coming out that are like, they thank me
that's awesome.
because they're learning and they're relating to it,
Yeah.
which is the exact reason that
Yeah.
I wrote it.
Yeah.
I wanted people to relate to it and to be able to understand it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like love bombing.
Mm-hmm.
Love bombing feels good.
Feels
And
so good.
in my book, the way I have it formatted is like I go back and I'll tell us my story.
Yeah.
So in the beginning, he love bombed me. So I'll tell a little story about that, and then I'll stop. And first of all, I say red flag,
Okay. Awesome.
and then next I'll put the the glossary definition.
Okay.
Love bombing. This is an example of love bombing. And then I go into the next trait. So it's all about the traits. So I don't tell my complete story, but I tell
Okay.
just certain traits that I noticed of the cycle.
Yeah.
So going, and it's an easy read. I mean, you could probably
Yeah.
read my book in one day. It's just an easy read.
Right. And that's how I felt mine was because people were like, I read your book in one day. I'm like, well, yeah, it was kind of easy to read. It's kind of how I felt like, even when I was reading through it, I'm like, and you're supposed to kind of write. I mean, some people, when they write novels, they write at a higher level, but really reading like this, people do want to read. I think it's like a fourth grade level. People just want an easy read, get
Right.
through it. And then you know what? Then we can get our information out there so that people can
Mhm.
have the tools to not get into trouble with this because love bombing is hard, right? Because love bombing looks good at the beginning, and it's like, how do you know it's a red flag? And
Mhm.
that's the hard part. And so just talking about that, and that's why we
Mhm.
talk about it on the podcast, right? It's everything's a big rush for the narcissist. They want to
Yeah.
rush you and love you right away and let's have babies and get engaged and
Mhm.
all those horrible things that sound
But
good.
I mean, I've gotten lots of good feedback.
That's so good.
I'm
I'm so
assuming you
glad.
have too.
I have strangers emailing me, saying thank you for sharing your story and I can relate and I want to tell my story on your podcast. I have someone who reached out to me who is the wife of a celebrity and said,
Oh,
I
nice.
know, and
Mhm.
said, I'd like to tell my story. I'm like, oh my God, girl. Okay.
Yeah, get her on
So,
your podcast.
it's so crazy because I think with our story, we give people permission to you do not have to write a book and you don't have to do a podcast. But when you share your story, even with your close friends, it helps the next person. And
I
that's
think it's
the,
so important that we talk about it,
yeah,
almost like mental health. There was a long period of time where you just didn't talk about certain things, and
right.
look where it's gotten us.
I
And
know.
with narcissism, I mean, we need to talk about these traits. We need to talk about what's
Yeah,
happening.
right.
And it breaks my heart that some of these relationships get to the point where there's physical abuse, there's
Yeah,
sexual abuse.
yeah,
It's already mental abuse and emotional abuse,
right.
but it crosses over to the physical and the sexual abuse. And I talk about that in my book.
Okay. Yeah,
Like we need to keep talking about these things so that that men too can be aware of it. And I have a 16-year-old daughter,
yeah.
and her and a couple of her friends read it, and they all related to it. They're in
Wow.
high school.
Yeah, and
So
that's really scary.
you've got high schoolers
Yeah.
that are dealing with narcissistic.
Yeah, it's that coercive control, right? That we might even see on TV shows or in movies that is part of this manipulation and gaslighting that almost becomes part of our environment, part of society.
uh
And so it's hard to even identify it, that maybe girls don't even realize it's happening. Because I don't know about you, but being brought up as a woman in society, we're taught to be the good girl, follow the rules, keep quiet, or
Right.
you're a bitch, those kinds of things. And these are all things that are coercive control. So that when you get into a toxic relationship, you follow the rules because you were taught to be a good girl, don't rock the boat, don't make waves, don't be, because if you do, you're a bitch rather than you're just trying to set a boundary.
Yeah.
That's it's hard, but for me, I don't know about you, but learning how to set healthy boundaries was really my saving grace
Oh
for
yeah.
everything. Yeah.
And even coming out of a relationship, I've had to set boundaries, and I'm at a point where I don't even communicate with my ex
Uh-huh.
unless it's through our co-parenting app,
That's awesome. Yeah.
and if it's about our child.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's
there's
it.
no other reason. Do you recommend, I mean, I know the answer, but let's tell it for the audience. Do you
Yeah,
recommend going no contact if you
absolutely.
if you can? Okay, so when you're co-parenting, because I didn't have to co-parent.
Mhm.
Um, when you're co-parenting, so you're doing it through an app
Yes, it's
and
called
okay.
Our Family Wizard. It's a co-parent.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. So that's a really great tip then. Only through there, they can't text you. Now, let's give some examples. What if he texts you directly?
So what I've done, I've blocked him on all my social media.
Okay.
I've blocked him on my phone, so he can't call me or text me.
Okay. Perfect. Okay.
But we do have a child together, so I understand.
Yes,
I mean,
exactly.
we have to be able to communicate on some level. But the
Yeah.
co-parenting app, first of all, nothing can be deleted.
Oh, okay, great.
So if they message you, they can't without iPhone. I'm not sure about Androids, but I know
Okay.
iPhone, you can send a message and you can retract it.
Oh, okay.
So what I dealt with was that, he would do the jabs and then delete it.
And then
Do the
delete it
jabs and delete it. And I was
on text message.
on text message, and I was
So
like,
that's
"Fuck
good with
that."
the app. He can't do that. That's really smart. They probably
Yeah.
did that on purpose because they do make threats and stuff like that, and then they deny it.
Oh
If they're
yeah.
threatening you, yeah.
And also they have if it gets to a point, I can add my lawyer.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah,
Okay,
I can
great.
add my lawyer to it so that she can see what's going on.
Yeah.
Um, but there's a text messaging feature, there's a calendar feature.
Oh,
So
that's
if
good.
I, sign them up for a camp,
Yeah,
I can
to
put that can, or if
coordinate.
I'm, yes, or if I'm going on vacation, I can put that in there.
Okay.
And then also expenses.
Okay,
You
that's
can, you can put
awesome.
the expenses in there and then it'll, if you're doing 50/50, it'll
Yeah.
break the expense up and it'll show you, how much they owe, how much you owe.
Yeah.
They have to approve it. I mean, it's a great app. I enjoy it.
Okay, well,
Now,
that's a really good idea,
Mhm.
because I didn't have to do that, but I just know the couple of times we had to communicate over because he has a relationship with one of our kids. If he ever goes away with him, which he has, I would
Mhm.
want to be able to be contacted if something happened,
Right.
and we have to do that over text. But I never have to communicate with him. I haven't communicated with him in over a year, thank God. I
Yeah.
hope to never see his stupid face ever again.
It's so like, I don't even know the word to describe it. It's just, it's good.
Right,
It's good
right.
not having to deal with that every day.
Yes,
And even, I don't remember the last time I've seen him, to be honest with you. It's been a long
that's
time.
great. Yeah, that's great.
Mhm.
You know, when people are when okay, as a recovering people pleaser, I remember this feeling like, oh well, I don't want to be rude and block him or whatever. And not to mention
Fuck
sometimes,
that.
right,
Black
exactly. And sometimes they even say, I can't believe you're that way, you're so difficult, things like that. Things that they used to say to you anyway when you were married. I mean, I just want to encourage people to really remember your mental health, and it's not necessary. And just because someone says something doesn't mean it's true. So
Yeah.
I'm telling you, no contact to me was the saving grace for my
Mhm.
mental health. No looking at their social media, no anything. I blocked everybody, unfriended everybody. I only have one friend who could potentially do something with him.
Mhm.
And I even told him, I said, if I see you do something with him and I see it on social media, I might unfriend you on social media just because I don't think
Right.
it's good for my mental health. And he's like, okay, that's fine. That's not a big deal. You
Yeah, I
know?
started with, obviously I blocked him, blocked his girlfriend,
Yeah.
and a few people that I guess they're kind of close to, just because I don't want to see any of that. I don't, I'm past that.
Right.
And if you can't block them completely, then learn how to gray rock.
Yes. So talk about that.
Yeah, gray rocking was, I kind of wish I knew this back when I was with him.
Yeah, me too.
Gray rocking, it's exactly what it sounds like. You're basically a rock. You keep your responses very short and to the point. Yes,
And
no,
neutral. Yeah.
okay, very neutral.
You
Um,
answer the questions. I know I follow an account that does co parenting.
uh,
And when they start saying, like, I can't believe you're going off with your boyfriend, that's why you want the weekend or whatever. And he always, this is how he gray rocks. He says, we're no longer, I'm sorry, no, we're no longer talking about our child. So I will just see you next weekend. You know, like he just gets right to the point.
yeah,
We're not talking about him anymore, and you don't have to say you're not allowed to talk about my love life. You
yeah,
just say, get to the facts.
yeah,
We're no
facts.
longer talking about our child. I'll see you next weekend for our scheduled visit or whatever it is. You know, it's so
And
I
it's hard at the beginning
it is, yeah.
because you still have those like where you just want to say what you want to say. But
Yes.
once you get past that,
Yeah.
gray rocking feels good. Because
I
you become the better person, basically.
You
You
really
rise,
do.
you rise above it, you become the better person, and it feels good.
And they don't like it, that's for sure. So I had to see my ex last year, the last time I saw him, to talk about something, and we were in public, and I do it in public because he was never rude to me in public.
Yeah,
Well, he was so rude to me, and he actually started to raise his voice. He's never done that. But this is what it taught me. I went full gray rock. Like the more he got mad, the more gray. I was the biggest grayest rock you've ever seen. I was just
yeah,
sitting there, and I was thinking in my head, this man thinks he still owns me. This man thinks we're still married,
yeah.
and he's just treating me like he always did, but he never did in public. And it was so interesting, and it was making him so upset that I was
You weren't reacting
very
to
neutral. I was
it.
not upset. He was like, "Are we done?" And I was like, "Yes." I just that was it. I mean,
Yeah.
he was furious. It was great. I loved it. And that's the thing is you do not have to yell and scream. You can actually be a gray rock and they'll get mad.
And the beauty of the gray rocking is that eventually they lose interest because they know that they're not going to get a reaction out of you.
Right.
So you're protecting your peace.
Yes. Oh my gosh, for sure.
And
So,
that, and I feel like, maybe not 100%, but I'm probably like 96% there where he doesn't respond back. Every once
okay.
in a while he does, but
Yeah.
um, so we're almost there.
Well, it's really good. It takes practice, right? It's not going to happen overnight, and that some of them will continue to egg you on or push the buttons they know they can push. And you
Yeah.
just really have to practice. Like, really find those good friends. I know you've talked about this about your good friends that you would send text messages to your
Right.
good friends. I did that
My
too.
board of directors, I call my board of directors.
Right. I love that. So that's a good thing to do. I did that with my friends too. I'm like, I really want to send them this text. And they would
Yeah.
say, well, don't send it to him, but you can tell us all about it.
Right. It feels good to write it.
Yes.
And they'll come back and they'll either say, yeah, this is not approved by management, or we do not second this motion. I'm like, I
Yes,
know, but it
exactly.
feels good to say it.
It does
And,
feel good to say it. You
and
know, go
writing the
ahead.
book, it was great therapy for me.
Yeah, me too.
And when I sat down and we actually used the same publisher. She was amazing.
Yes, I know. Isn't she great? I saw that in your book. I was like, oh, she
Yes.
used her. Oh my gosh, that's so great. I'm so glad.
And she really helped me because in the beginning when I said, okay, I'm going to write a book, that's overwhelming.
It is.
Just thinking about I'm going to write a book, it's just very overwhelming. So, our publisher, she was good at helping me organize
I
my
know.
mind.
Yes. That's why I told her I needed her. So
Yes.
if anybody has an idea for a book, you can find our publisher inside our information there.
Yeah.
Marissa Cohen. She is so great. And I did the same thing. I was like, here is my jumbled mess of ideas. And she goes, oh, we got this. You know what I mean? She's like, we can have this book out in June. I was like, we can?
Yeah, like you have a conversation with her and all of a sudden you feel confident. You're like, all right, we're doing this.
You know what else I loved and why I enjoyed using her is because she's in the same space we are. She's in the narcissist space.
Mhm.
She just won Campus Speaker of the Year for this topic,
Yeah.
and she talks to college campuses about this, and so it made me feel really confident in telling this story because
Right.
sometimes people think. And I just talked about this on my update episode that people say you're living in the past when you're talking about this. And it's like, no, we're not living in the past. We all have a story to tell and you're allowed to tell your story. That doesn't mean you're living in the past. And actually, that's a manipulative word
Mhm.
phrase to say to people. That's what toxic people say to keep people quiet. That you're
Mhm.
talking about the past. So, yeah, it's I'm glad you were able to use her and organize your thoughts.
I speaking of that in the beginning, I actually dedicate part of my dedication
Hmm.
is to people who say that I'm playing the victim.
Oh, uh-huh. Yeah, I
Yeah.
saw
So
that.
I mean I dedicate this book to those people that say that I'm playing the victim.
Yeah,
And I put this quote in there from Alex L. is you are not a victim for sharing your story. You're a survivor setting the world on fire with your truth.
I love that.
You never know who needs your light, your warmth, and rage and courage.
Oh, I love that.
Know? And even the first week of putting my book out, the amount of people that reached out to me that said thank you, that they related to it
Yeah.
and it empowered them. I'm right where I need to be. I'm
Yes,
good.
exactly.
I'm
Ex-
good.
exactly.
Mhm.
Oh, okay, so what's next for you? Are you doing anything next or is this, well,
You
what's next
know,
for you?
several people have asked if I'm going to come out with another book.
I had a friend at my launch party go, "When are you writing the next one?" I'm like, "What is happening right now?" I
I
just barely
know.
got this one out. I know, but isn't that exciting that people want to hear more? And I did see my good friend last night for dinner, and she said, "I really want more." And I was like,
Yeah.
"My God, okay."
Uh, and and now like after especially like when you're in the shower and you're thinking about stuff,
Yes,
or
yes.
you wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and you start thinking about stuff. This book has been published, but then I'm like, oh man, I should have added that. I should have added
Me
this.
too.
So I probably have enough for another book. So
Yes. We'll have
I
to
don't
do
know, we'll
another one.
see.
I
I'll just,
know.
I'll keep my journaling going and see what happens.
We'll have to do another one for sure. Um, so what I really want to do next is I want to get on the road and speak to
Yeah.
like women's conferences and stuff and like touch the people, be out there with the women in
Yeah.
conferences and things like that. And maybe even churches
Yeah.
to really, because everybody is, abuse has touched everybody's lives. And so I
Yeah.
really want to get out there and do that. I've had that dream for a long time. I didn't think I would want to do that
Mhm.
because I like being at home and the podcast life is great. I'm wearing sweatpants on the bottom and a nice dress shirt on top. I love that life,
Yeah.
the Zoom life.
Uh-huh.
But I do want to get out and be with the people. So
Right.
that's what I'm
I
gonna do
I
next.
even sent my book to high school counselors.
That's a great idea.
Yeah,
Yes.
because after talking to my daughter and her friends, I'm like,
Oh, that's great. Yes.
yeah, I was like, maybe, yeah, this could be, especially the journal, this could be something good that's in a counseling office so that when girls do come in,
Yes.
you know,
Because I mean, I cried about a boy. You know what I mean? Like how many times you cried about a boy to the counselor? Those kinds of things. So that's for sure.
maybe we can go
Well,
on tour together.
well, Monica, we did it.
We
We
did it.
saved the world.
We
All right.
saved the world just like that.
Okay, let's hold up hold up your book. Oh, and why is mine backwards? Like is your
Here's no,
can we flip the camera? Let's see.
yours is fine.
Yeah,
No,
it
on mine
is?
looks good. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Oh, it
Yeah.
does? Oh, that's crazy. It's backwards on my side. Anyway,
Is
you're
mine
talking about
backwards?
no,
Is
yours
mine
isn't.
backwards?
Does it look backwards on the there?
Or
I love that. I love your I love your cover. It's so amazing. I love
and
that.
my title, Joker's dressed up as king, it symbolizes just how fake things can look.
Yes. I
Yeah.
I love the whole thing. I think because I've shared a couple of times just your title and people are like, "Oh, that's good." Doesn't even need an explanation. And
Oh
just
no,
the same way married to a nice guy doesn't need an
I
explanation.
know, exactly.
People know exactly what it means. Well, this has
So
been
book
fun.
and journals are both on the big A.
The big A. Yes, we'll put all the links in the show notes so
Yeah.
that you guys can get this information. And really, we'll put our podcast information in the show notes so you guys can share it to everybody and all the resources that are on our websites and things like that so that, other people can be helped by this information. And we told all of the narcissist tricks and tactics so that you can stay safe. So
Yeah. And thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for empowering me too.
I'm so glad that
You
that it
you
was helpful.
helped me. Yeah.
That's awesome. I'm so glad we met. So we'll
It's
have to
always
meet
nice
in
talking to you.
person.
I feel like you and I could just talk for
I
hours.
know that's for sure. But my team likes it when I keep it under half an hour, 45 minutes. So we have to say goodbye.
Yeah. All right.
Okay,
Have a good
so
one.
all right, I'm going to tell everybody to leave us a review and go love us on social media and do all the things so podcast land knows that you love us. So we'll talk to you guys soon.
All right. Have
Bye.
a good one. Bye.